The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but Dr. Rosalind Mercer didn't notice. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen, tracking the same empty quadrant of space she'd monitored for the past 6 months. 20 years of this. 20 years of silence answering her calls into the void. She pushed her grey-streaked hair behind her ear and reached for the mug anyway, grimacing at the bitter taste. The radio telescope array at the Atacama facility hummed in the background, its data streaming across her monitors in endless waves of nothing. Rose had stopped believing in miracles around the same time she buried her daughter. The universe, she'd learned, was vast and indifferent. Beautiful, yes. Full of wonders, certainly. But listening? No, the universe didn't listen to anyone's prayers. She was about to shut down for the night when the algorithm flagged something. At first, she thought it was a glitch. The gravitational distortion readings made no sense, appearing suddenly at the edge of the solar system like a stone dropped in still water. She ran the diagnostic 3 times. Each time, the result remained the same. Something massive was moving through space, and it wasn't following any natural trajectory. Her hands trembled as she reached for the secure phone. The call connected after 2 rings. "This is Dr. Mercer at Atacama. I need to speak with someone at the Global Defense Initiative immediately." 48 hours later, Rose found herself 300 feet underground in a facility she didn't know existed. The elevator doors opened to reveal a sprawling command center, dozens of screens displaying satellite feeds, trajectory models, and military assets positioning around the globe. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and tension. "Dr. Mercer." The voice came from behind her, deep and controlled. She turned to face a tall man in his 50s, military bearing evident in every line of his posture. His hair was iron gray, cut short, and his eyes held the kind of weariness that came from seeing too much. "I'm Colonel Marcus Webb. I'll be coordinating our response to this situation." Rose noted the careful word choice. "Not threat, not contact. Situation. You've seen my data?" she asked, falling into step beside him as he led her deeper into the facility. "I've seen something that suggests an object roughly twice the size of our largest aircraft carrier is decelerating as it approaches our solar system." Marcus's jaw tightened. "My analysts tell me that's impossible without technology we don't possess." "It's not impossible," Rose said quietly. "It's just not ours." They reached a glass-walled office overlooking the main command floor. Marcus gestured for her to enter, then closed the door behind them. The sounds of the command center faded to a muted hum. "I need you to be straight with me, Doctor." Marcus leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "In your professional opinion, what are we dealing with?" Rose met his gaze. In those tired eyes, she saw something familiar. Recognition of loss. Understanding of how the universe could break you. "Something that's been traveling for a very long time," she said. "The gravitational signature suggests the object has been in motion for centuries, maybe millennia." "It's old, Colonel. Possibly old. And it's coming here deliberately. Hostile. I don't know." Rose pulled up a holographic display, showing the object's trajectory. "But if they wanted to attack, they could have accelerated. Instead, they're slowing down, like they're trying not to frighten us." Marcus studied the projection, his expression unreadable. "Or like they're conserving power. Could be a damaged vessel looking for resources." "Could be," Rose admitted. "Or it could be explorers. Scientists like me, reaching out across the void hoping someone would answer." "Hope." Marcus said the word like it tasted bitter. "Hope doesn't keep 7 billion people safe, Doctor. Preparation does." Rose felt a flash of irritation. "And fear doesn't help us understand what we're facing. If we respond with weapons drawn, we might start a war we can't win. If we don't prepare, we might not get the chance to respond at all." They stared at each other across the desk, the weight of humanity's future hanging between them. Outside the glass, Rose could see analysts tracking the object's approach. 72 days until arrival. 72 days to decide who they were as a species. "I think we're going to be spending a lot of time together," Marcus said finally, his tone shifting slightly. "Not quite warm, but less defensive. Might as well establish some ground rules." Rose raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "I don't believe in fairy tales about benevolent aliens, but I'm not stupid enough to ignore expert analysis. You know the science. I know strategy. We work together. We might actually figure this out before that thing arrives. She considered him for a long moment. Behind the military facade, she sensed something else. Someone who'd learned the hard way that control was an illusion, but tried to maintain it anyway. Someone like her. All right, Colonel. We work together. Rose extended her hand. But when that vessel arrives, I'm asking you to remember something. Whoever's on that ship has been traveling through the dark for longer than human civilization has existed. They've crossed distances we can barely imagine. That takes more than technology. It takes hope. Marcus shook her hand, his grip firm. Then let's hope your hope is enough, Doctor. Because if it's not, we'll need every weapon we have. As Rose settled into her new workspace, watching the distant object on the monitors, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Not quite hope, not yet, but maybe its distant cousin, possibility. The vessel was still 68 days away. 68 days to learn if humanity could look up at the stars and see something other than a threat. 68 days working beside a man who seemed to carry as many scars as she did. Outside the underground facility, the world continued spinning. But here, in the artificial light of the command center, Rose and Marcus began their vigil, watching, waiting. And slowly, despite themselves, beginning to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they weren't quite as alone as they'd thought. Neither of them realized yet that the vessel approaching Earth wasn't the only thing about to change their lives forever. The 37th day underground felt like the 100th. Rose had lost track of actual sunlight, her world reduced to fluorescent tubes and the constant glow of monitors. The vessel had crossed into Jupiter's orbit, its trajectory refined with each passing hour. Still decelerating, still approaching with the patience of something that had already waited centuries. She rubbed her eyes and checked her watch. 3 a.m. The command center had quieted to a skeleton crew, just the night shift analysts and her. And Marcus, she realized, noticing his silhouette in his office across the floor. He never seemed to sleep either. As if sensing her observation, Marcus emerged from his office carrying 2 cups of coffee. He crossed the command floor and set one beside her keyboard without a word. "You don't have to keep bringing me coffee," Rose said, though she wrapped her hands around the warm cup gratefully. "You drink it cold anyway," Marcus replied, settling into the chair beside her workstation. "Might as well start warm." A smile tugged at Rose's lips despite herself. Over the past 5 weeks, they'd fallen into an unexpected rhythm. Days spent arguing over response protocols and threat assessments. Nights spent in companionable silence, each pursuing their own analysis while somehow finding comfort in the other's presence. "New data?" Marcus asked, nodding toward her screen. "Something interesting." Rose pulled up the spectral analysis. "The vessel is emitting a low-frequency pulse. Not radio, not anything electromagnetic. It's gravitational waves, deliberate ones." Marcus leaned closer, studying the patterns. His shoulder brushed hers, and neither of them moved away. "What does that mean?" "It means they're using the fabric of space-time itself to communicate. The most universal language imaginable." Rose's fingers flew across the keyboard, isolating the signal. "And Marcus, look at this. It's not random. There's structure, mathematical sequences." She felt him tense beside her. "Countdown to weapons deployment? Or..." Rose turned to face him, their faces inches apart in the dim light. "A greeting. The first 100 prime numbers, then Fibonacci sequences, then something more complex. This is a knock on the door, not a declaration of war." Marcus held her gaze for a long moment. In the low light, his features softened, showing the man beneath the uniform. "You really believe that, don't you? That they come in peace?" "I believe they're trying to talk to us. Whether we listen is up to us." Rose paused, then asked the question that had been building for weeks. "Why don't you believe, Marcus? What happened to make you so certain the universe is hostile?" He looked away, jaw tightening. For a moment, Rose thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Her name was Catherine, my wife." Marcus stared at the screens showing the approaching vessel. 15 years ago, she was deployed with a peacekeeping force. They went to help Rose, to build schools and infrastructure in a region torn by conflict. She believed in the goodness of people, believed that reaching out with open hands would be met with open hands. Rose felt her chest tighten. She knew where this was going. The convoy was ambiguous. Insurgents pretending to be civilians seeking aid. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. 23 soldiers died that day. Catherine bled out in the sand while locals filmed it on their phones. She spent her last breaths asking why. Why did they do it when we came to help? Marcus, so don't ask me to hope, Doctor. His voice cracked slightly. Hope got my wife killed. Preparation might keep humanity alive. Silence stretched between them. On the monitors, the vessel continued its patient approach. 35 days remaining. Rose took a breath. 5 years ago, my daughter Emma was diagnosed with leukemia. She was 12. The words came easier than she expected. Maybe because they were underground, in the dark, speaking truths they'd both carried too long. We tried everything. Every treatment, every experimental therapy. I spent nights reading research papers, searching for hope in data and statistics. Rose, let me finish. She turned to him. Emma loved space. Used to say that somewhere up there, aliens were looking back at us, wondering if we were real. On her last night, she made me promise something. She said, Mom, if they ever come, don't be scared. Be curious. She died believing the universe was full of wonder, not threat. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and Rose saw her own grief reflected in his eyes. Two people who'd lost everything, finding themselves responsible for humanity's first contact with the unknown. I'm not asking you to forget, Catherine, Rose said softly. I still talk to Emma sometimes when I'm alone at the telescope. But maybe we can honor them by being better than our fear, by choosing to reach back when something reaches for us. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then slowly he reached out and took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused, real. I don't know if I can be that brave. You're here, aren't you? Working with me instead of just planning an attack. Rose squeezed his hand. That's already braver than you think. They sat there in the near darkness, hands linked across the console, while the vessel drew closer. Around them the facility hummed with purpose, but in that moment they existed in their own small pocket of space and time. The sequences, Marcus said eventually, his voice steadier. Show me how to read them. Rose felt something warm bloom in her chest. Not quite hope, but something close. She pulled up the data, and together they began decoding the patterns. His analytical mind and her scientific knowledge complemented each other perfectly, finding rhythm in the mathematics, meaning in the pulses. Hours passed. The night shift gave way to morning crew. Neither Rose nor Marcus noticed, too absorbed in their work and each other's presence. They'd moved closer, shoulders touching now, sharing the same screen as they unraveled the message hidden in gravitational waves. Here, Rose breathed, highlighting a section. This isn't just mathematics. It's coordinates, star systems, relative positions, a map. A map of what? Their journey. Rose's voice filled with wonder. They're showing us where they've been. Hundreds of systems, thousands of years of exploration. Marcus, they're not invaders. They're travelers. Explorers documenting the galaxy. Marcus studied the data, and Rose watched his expression shift. Not quite belief, not yet. But doubt was cracking through his certainty, letting in slivers of light. If you're right, he said carefully. If they really are peaceful explorers, then they've been traveling alone for millennia, searching for something. For someone, Rose corrected. For us. For anyone who might answer back. Marcus turned to her, and in his tired eyes, she saw something that made her breath catch. Not just acknowledgement of the data, but of her. Of them in this strange underground world they'd built together. I'm glad it's you, he said quietly. Glad you're the one helping me see this clearly. I don't know what happens when that ship arrives, but Rose, these past weeks working with you, learning from you, it's reminded me what it feels like to not be alone. Rose felt tears prick her eyes. I feel it too. Like maybe Emma was right. Maybe the universe does give us back what we need, just not in the way we expect. They were still holding hands. Neither could say exactly when it became less about comfort and more about connection. But somewhere between the data and the darkness, between shared losses and quiet revelations, something had shifted. Marcus lifted her hand and pressed it gently to his chest, over his heart. Whatever happens in 35 days, I want you to know I'm choosing to trust. Not just the data, not just the mathematics, but you, your instinct, your hope. And I'm choosing to trust your caution, Rose whispered. Your need to protect. We're better together, Marcus. Stronger. He leaned forward and she met him halfway. The kiss was gentle, tentative, tasting of coffee and possibility. When they parted, both wore expressions of surprise and something deeper. Something that felt like the first warm day after a long winter. "This is probably against about 100 protocols," Marcus said, a small smile playing at his lips. "Probably," Rose smiled back. "Want to break 100 more?" He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound filled the command center like music. They turned back to the screens, but now they sat closer, hands still intertwined. The vessel continued its approach. The countdown continued its march. But something had changed in that underground facility. Two broken people had found each other in the shadow of humanity's greatest unknown. And in finding each other, they'd discovered that maybe the courage to face the stars and the courage to open your heart weren't so different after all. Outside, the world prepared for contact. Inside, Rose and Marcus had already made their first connection. And it was enough to light the darkness. Day 72 arrived like a held breath finally released. Rose stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing every angle of Earth's orbit. The vessel had entered the lunar sphere 3 hours ago, and every telescope on the planet was trained on it. World leaders filled secure channels with demands and contingencies. Military satellites had locked targeting solutions. Humanity stood at the edge of a cliff, uncertain whether to jump or be pushed. Marcus stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her lower back. Over the past 5 weeks, their relationship had become an open secret in the facility. No one commented directly, but Rose had noticed the knowing looks, the way people gave them space during the night shifts. In the face of potential extinction, regulations about fraternization seemed trivial. "Final approach vector confirmed," announced Lieutenant Chen from the tracking station. "The vessel will achieve stable orbit in approximately 43 minutes. Rose felt Marcus tense. "All defense platforms are standing by?" "Yes, sir." "Awaiting your command. Hold position. Weapons cold unless I give explicit authorization." Marcus's voice carried across the command center with absolute authority. Then quieter just to Rose. "Your call, Doctor. Tell me what you see." Rose studied the enhanced imagery streaming from the Hubble telescope. The vessel had finally revealed itself as it approached, shedding the gravitational distortions that had cloaked it during its long journey. What she saw took her breath away. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Marcus, look at the architecture. That's not a warship. Those are sensor arrays, observation decks, research modules. This is a science vessel, an ark of knowledge." The structure was unlike anything human engineering had produced. Graceful curves and geometric precision merged into something that seemed to grow rather than be built. Parts of it looked ancient, scarred by micrometeorite impacts and the wear of centuries. Other sections appeared newer, as if repaired and rebuilt countless times during its endless voyage. "There," Rose pointed to a section of the hull. "Damage, extensive damage to what looks like the propulsion system. They're not just exploring, Marcus. They're limping. This ship is barely holding together." "Which could make them desperate," Marcus said, though his tone lacked conviction. Over the weeks, Rose had watched his certainty erode, replaced by cautious openness. Desperate people do dangerous things, or brave things. Rose pulled up the gravitational wave data they'd been analyzing. The final sequence in their message. "I think I've decoded it." She brought up the translation algorithm they'd developed together, lines of code representing humanity's first attempt to understand an alien language. The patterns resolved into something startlingly clear. "We are the last," Rose read, her voice trembling. "Our star died. Our worlds burned. We carry what remains. We seek those who might remember us. We seek harbor. We seek hope." Silence fell across the command center. Every analyst, every officer, every person in that underground facility heard those words and felt them like a weight in their chest. "They're refugees," Marcus said softly. "Not invaders, not conquerors. Refugees from a dead civilization." Rose turned to him, seeing the conflict written across his face, the military strategist warring with the man who'd learned to hope again. She took his hand. "What do we do?" Marcus looked at her, then at the screens showing the battered vessel, then at the faces of his crew. People who'd spent 72 days preparing for war and were now confronting something far more challenging than hostility. Compassion. We answer them, he said finally. We tell them they're not alone anymore. Rose felt tears stream down her face. You're sure? No. Marcus smiled, that rare, genuine smile she'd come to cherish. But you taught me that hope isn't about certainty. It's about choosing to reach out even when you're terrified. So let's reach out. He turned to the communications officer. Open all channels. Broadcast on every frequency, including gravitational. Sir, the Joint Chiefs are demanding. The Joint Chiefs can wait. Marcus's voice rang with authority. This is first contact, and we're going to do it right. Dr. Mercer, would you do the honors? Rose moved to the transmission console, her heart pounding. She thought of Emma, of her daughter's absolute certainty that the universe held wonders. Of Marcus's Catherine, who'd believed in reaching out with open hands. Of all the humans who'd ever looked up at the stars and wondered if someone was looking back. She opened the channel. This is Dr. Rosalind Mercer, speaking on behalf of the people of Earth. Her voice shook but held steady. We have received your message. We understand your journey. We see your courage. She paused, wiping her eyes. You are not alone. You are welcome here. Come home. The transmission went out in every direction, carried by radio waves and gravitational pulses, by every medium humanity had mastered. For long moments, nothing happened. The vessel continued its slow orbit, silent and waiting. Then the screens flickered. A face appeared. Not human, but beautiful in its own way. Large eyes the color of deep amber, skin that seemed to shimmer like oil on water. Features that suggested both age and gentleness. Behind the figure, Rose could see others, dozens of them, gathered in what looked like a damaged control room. When the being spoke, the translation algorithm Marcus and Rose had built together rendered the words in real time. I am Veshikara, keeper of the last archive. We have traveled 3,000 of your years, searching for a voice in the darkness. The being's eyes glistened with what might have been tears. You have given us more than welcome. You have given us back our future. The command center erupted in cheers and tears. Analysts hugged each other. Officers who'd maintained stoic professionalism for 72 days broke down sobbing. Humanity had just made first contact, and it was everything hopeful hearts had dreamed it might be. Rose felt Marcus's arms wrap around her from behind, pulling her close. You were right, he whispered in her ear. Emma was right. The universe gave us back what we needed. She turned in his embrace, looking up at him. Not just us, them too. They crossed 3,000 years of darkness because they believed someone might answer. That's not just hope, Marcus. That's faith. Faith in strangers who might have destroyed them. Marcus cupped her face gently. They took the same risk we did. Chose trust over fear. On the screens, Veshikara was speaking with world leaders now, arrangements being made for the vessel to achieve stable orbit while repairs were assessed. The ship carried the accumulated knowledge of an entire civilization, Veshikara explained. Art, science, history, philosophy. Everything they were, preserved in the hope that someone might remember them. We will remember, Rose said. Though whether to Marcus or to Veshikara or to Emma's memory, she wasn't sure. We'll help them rebuild, learn from them, and maybe together we'll be better than we were alone. Marcus kissed her forehead. I love you, Rose Mercer. I didn't think I'd ever say those words again, but here, in the moment humanity stopped being alone in the universe, I need you to know. You didn't just help me see the stars differently. You helped me see myself differently. I love you too, Rose whispered back. You taught me that caution isn't the opposite of hope. It's hope's guardian. We balance each other. Around them, the command center buzzed with activity. Plans were being made, protocols established, a new chapter of human history being written in real time. But Rose and Marcus stood in their own small pocket of space, holding each other as the weight of 72 days finally lifted. Later, much later, they would stand on the surface and watch the alien vessel in orbit, no longer a threat, but a promise. They would meet Veshikara in person, begin the long process of cultural exchange and mutual learning. Rose would spend years studying the archives, discovering wonders that made her childhood dreams seem small. Marcus would oversee security protocols, but more importantly, he'd help establish the first joint human-alien research station, a symbol of trust built on the foundation of that first brave choice. But for now, in the underground facility where they'd spent 72 days learning to hope again, they simply held each other. Two scarred souls who'd found healing in the most unexpected place, who'd discovered that the courage to face the unknown and the courage to love again came from the same well of strength. The vessel had come from across the galaxy, carrying the last remnants of a dying civilization. But it had brought more than refugees and archives. It had brought a mirror, showing humanity what it could be when it chose compassion over fear, welcome over weapons. "Do you think Emma would be proud?" Marcus asked softly. Rose smiled through her tears. "I think she's been watching the whole time, pushing us together. She always believed in love stories with happy endings. Is this an ending?" "No." Rose looked up at the screen showing the alien ship, humanity's new companions in the cosmos. "This is a beginning, for them, for us, for everyone who will look up now and see the stars as neighbors instead of threats." Marcus pulled her closer. "Then let's begin together." And as Earth's first day as a species no longer alone dawned above them, Rose and Marcus stood in each other's arms, proof that even in humanity's darkest uncertainty, connection remained their greatest gift. The aliens had crossed the galaxy searching for someone to remember them. Rose and Marcus had crossed their own private voids of grief and fear to remember how to trust. The ship in orbit hadn't changed the galaxy, but it had changed two broken people into something whole. It had transformed fear into hope, isolation into connection, and reminded humanity that the bravest thing anyone could do, whether reaching across the stars or across the space between two wounded hearts, was simply to say, "You are not alone." The universe, vast and dark as it was, had answered both calls with the same truth. That hope, carried long enough through the darkness, eventually finds its way home.